Hi, it's Rachel Maldonado. I am with Dr. Peter McCullough, and belief in the human spirit and desire to connect is the reason that I want to tell your story and mine. And, Dr. McCullough, tell me about your background.
I'm a practicing internist and cardiologist in Dallas, Texas. I'm trained in epidemiology. Spend about half of my time in clinical practice, and the other half I'm an author, an editor, a clinical scholar. In the last 2 years, I've dedicated all of my academic focus on COVID-19, and the country has relied on me. I've testified in the U.S. Senate now twice. I'm a frequent contributor to Fox News and many of the major news channels. It's great to be on your podcast as we're moving to a very important public program south of Chicago.
Yes, and I am in the Chicagoland area, and where are you based?
I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I've just come from Wichita, Kansas, where we held a series of programs for doctors, big public programs. I co-chaired the program with Dr. Brian Artist from Dallas, Texas. We had Attorney General candidate Chris Kobach, who gave very important legal sessions. And last night, we actually had a live broadcast on Instagram, which was seen by millions.
Wow, so you are busy. You are traveling all over. And what was your last week like?
The last week was phenomenal. I gave a large public program with a candidate for governor of Minnesota, Scott Jensen, in Minneapolis, standing room only crowd. We went over all the published data on vaccine safety and efficacy, and then moved into why the country should have a complete pivot towards the early treatment of COVID-19. And right from there, I rushed to the Lincoln Memorial, and I got there just in time to hear the opening from Jimmy and High Res on We Will Not Comply. And then Dr. Ryan Cole graciously introduced me, and I addressed a crowd of about 35,000 Americans who are hungry for medical truth. And I told them that there's three circles. There's three circles that are so important right now. The circle of medical freedom, which is linked to the circle of social freedom, which in turn is linked to the circle of economic freedom. And if we allow the circle of medical freedom to be touched or broken, all the other circles fracture and everything begins to crumble. And so the moment cannot be more important. The moment cannot be more decisive. That each American must preserve their circle of medical freedom. And then after that, the entire program in Washington, the Defeat the Mandates March, it was electric. In the press tent, it was interview after interview. And then on Monday, we moved into the historic 5-hour continuous U.S. Senate panel that I was honored to co-chair with Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. And in that important 5-hour Senate testimony, and it was titled A Second Opinion for Americans. We had dozens and dozens of doctors. We had scientists, nurses, patients, attorneys, and we organized the program along the 4 pillars of pandemic response.
Yes.
What was done and what we should have done to reduce the spread of the virus. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2, early treatment. Why that's the most important pillar and why we should always have treated high-risk patients with COVID-19 to prevent hospitalization and death. Pillar number 3, how we can and what we should do better in the hospital to reduce hospital lengths of stay and mortality. And then pillar number 4, vaccination. And we had the world's experts under testimony in transcript, in Senate transcript, and there were so many truth bombs.
Wow. What were some of the truth bombs that even you were like, wow, you couldn't believe?
In one part of the session, it was really explosive. And I asked Dr. Christina Parks from Michigan,
Yes.
who's African-American, who gave an impassioned speech just the day before on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. I asked her, I said, Dr. Parks, are African Americans being denied early treatment for COVID-19? And she looked at me deadpan and said, Dr. McCullough, yes, they are. And my father just died 3 days ago.
Wow. Wow. And so these are real stories. These are real people. It's affecting them. And you see the sadness, but you also see, do you feel a fighting spirit from the Americans, from patriots?
Americans have always united around freedom. And if there's anything that can unite us now, it is freedom, the hope of freedom, to preserve our freedom and our rights to receive early treatment, to avoid the chances of hospitalization for COVID-19, our rights to either accept or not accept a COVID-19 vaccine and what the implications are. That's when it's going to galvanize us. And I can tell you one question I asked is I asked the panel, and then I asked a packed gallery. We were in the Kennedy caucus room of the U.S. Senate. I asked the group, how many of you have been the victims of censorship or reprisal or professional damage for your efforts to compassionately treat patients with COVID-19? And the shocker was 80% of people raised their hands. And I said, let this be recorded in the Senate record.
Wow. And you yourself, how have you been censored when you're trying to get out the message of early treatment?
From the very beginning, the censorship occurred in the medical literature. It was clear that things were becoming corrupt. There was a fraudulent paper published in Lancet that really spoiled opportunities to use hydroxychloroquine, which turned out to be a beneficial drug in COVID-19. And then we've seen the data with ivermectin, which has been impressive, and the American Medical Association launching a campaign to abolish the use of ivermectin. Ivermectin is a standard of care in approximately 30 countries worldwide. Hydroxychloroquine in approximately 60 countries worldwide. And so the notion, one of our medical societies would want to abolish the use of valuable drugs. So our papers were censored. But fortunately, I had enough publication power to have the two seminal papers published on early treatment. One, the pathophysiologic basis and rationale for early ambulatory treatment of COVID-19 in the American Journal of Medicine in August of 2020. And then the sequel to that, which is sequenced multi-drug therapy for COVID-19, that was published in Reviews of Cardiovascular Medicine. That's become the basis of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons Home Treatment Guide, which has been downloaded and utilized millions of times. And as Dr. Brian Cole, when he introduced me on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, that these concepts have worked to save millions of lives. Millions of lives. It's been copyrighted, the McCullough Protocol. That was done on my behalf by Dr. Ben Marble, who leads myfreedoctor.com. But now it's said world over that Joe Rogan received the McCullough Protocol and Aaron Rodgers received the McCullough Protocol, and I've communicated with them and said, listen, these concepts work. Spread the word. I don't want to see another high-risk senior in America or in the world be damaged, let alone hospitalized or worse with COVID-19.
Yes. So you got Joe Rogan, podcaster. You have Aaron Rodgers, NFL football player. They get ivermectin. They get the Dr. Peter McCullough COVID early treatment protocol. And you know, why is it that the others, all the other Americans and worldwide, why is it that we can't have the treatment that they get?
Every American deserves treatment, and they should demand it, and they should be relentless. It is, at this point in time, people testified, including Dr. Pierre Corey and Dr. Paul Merrick of the Frontline Critical Care Consortium at the U.S. Senate panel. They use the word criminal. That it's criminal for people to be denied early treatment and then be railroaded into the hospital where they're put in isolation. Some of them never see their loved ones again. Yes.
I had a friend in the ICU and I could not visit and I tried to call. And so do you feel like there is an effect on everyone worldwide, this isolation when your loved ones are sick?
What's going on is truly worldwide, and it's heartbreaking. And outside the United States, it's worse. And I've had some of the most difficult teleconferences of my life to hear stories from doctors from the Netherlands and elsewhere, particularly in Scandinavia, performing euthanasia. So not even giving people a chance to survive COVID-19. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But something is in the minds of people to harm other people. And it's deeply disturbing.
Well, I want to have some hope for everyone and the frontline doctors. How did that start? People can get your early treatment advice. Tell me about that.
I think citizens of the world should be reassured that myself, colleagues from UCLA, Emory, and the Italians were working on the very first versions of the McCullough protocol. That independently, Dr. Vladimir Zelenko in Monroe, New York, was working on his protocol. Yvette Lozano independently in Dallas, Didier Rialt in Marseille, France, and then Pierre Corey and Paul Merrick, as well as Dr. Jean-Jacques Rochester down in Florida, were all working in their protocols. We all came to the same conclusions independently, that COVID-19 illness and the SARS-CoV-2 infection and high-risk patients could be treated, but the principles were that we needed drugs to address viral replication, inflammation or cytokine storm, and thrombosis. So no single drug was going to work, but drugs in combination would. And it should be reassuring that doctors independently found that these drugs indeed work. And there are 3 high-quality outcome studies, one by Brian Proctor as the first author, the next by Vladimir Zelenko, and the last by Didier Rialt, that all show these different protocols result in at least an 85% reduction in hospitalization and death. And I think now, with the advent of monoclonal antibodies, the new Merck and Pfizer drugs, that we could get 95% of efficacy in reducing the risk of hospitalization and death. The people in the hospital with COVID-19 don't need to be there. I've looked at all the literature. Sadly, people being hospitalized with COVID-19, it happens because of a lack of early treatment. It's not related to the vaccines. Whether or not someone's received a vaccine, they still should receive early treatment. The hospitalizations and mortality data are a reflection of inadequate early treatment.
Yes. So you have the data, the science, these doctors independently coming to these realizations, and what it has been like to interact with doctors all over the world that this crisis has, enabled.
It's been the most gratifying journey of my life to unify really over the world. And I've worked with doctors in Indonesia and Australia and South Africa, Europe, South America. It's been an extraordinary journey. And what we've learned is that in so many ways, what we have today is a crisis of compassion. What do all these doctors have in common? In fact, we had a meeting in Wichita specifically with the doctors, a private meeting, and we came up with 3 core principles that we all had, 3 characteristics that we all had from the very beginning. The first one was, we personally were never afraid of the virus. None of us. We knew we were going to get it, but we weren't personally afraid. We faced the virus head on. It was, in a sense, mano e viro, and we went after it. Principle number 2, we all knew this could be treated early. It's just a matter of finding what are the ways, just like we treat every other problem. We were not going to sit by and allow our patients to be slaughtered by the virus. That wasn't going to happen, not on our watch. The third principle, all of us had concerns regarding the COVID-19 vaccines from the very beginning of the development program to its implementation in the clinical trials and what we see in the public program.
Wow, this is so interesting. It is fear which stops people, and it is the lack of information which increases the fear. And what would you say to everyone worldwide? You say, hey, we the doctors who did our research, we weren't afraid. Tell me about that, the fear.
I think fear is driving so much of what we see today. And many people in our circles, including leading psychology professor Matthias Dent from Ghent, Belgium, a psychiatrist, Dr. Mark McDonald from Los Angeles, agree that fear has driven what's called mass formation, what we call mass formation psychosis. And the criteria for mass formation psychosis, which has happened in large religious cult suicides, it happened in Nazi Germany, so many atrocities worldwide. What happens in mass formation is there must be 4 criteria fulfilled. Number 1, there must be a prolonged period of isolation. That's happened. Number 2, the people must have had things taken away from them that they enjoyed. That's happened. Number 3, there must be constant free-floating anxiety, fear, anxiety over job loss, now anxiety over what could happen with the vaccines, etc., etc. And then lastly, the fourth condition, the capper, and that is there must be a single solution offered by an entity of authority, and boy, do we have that worldwide.
Yes.
Worldwide. And so what Dr. Matthias Desmond says is that how we know what's diagnostic of being in a mass formation is absurdity, meaning there's no limit to the absurdity of what we're seeing. So, for instance, people wearing masks in swimming pools, or wearing masks in cars driving by themselves, or obsessive use of hand sanitizer when the virus comes through the air, not by the hands, trying to sanitize pizza boxes. There's no limit to the absurdity. With the vaccines, people taking vaccines, getting COVID-19 anyway, then taking more vaccines and still getting COVID-19 anyway. So there's no limit to the absurdity. And that's indicative of mass formation. Now, what are the stakes here? What Dr. Desmond says is that historically, how mass formation almost always ends is in massive loss of life. And so the reason why, Rachel, our mission is so important right now is that we're at a level where we can discuss things that through our words and through the communication of the scientific findings in level setting with people, breaking through, actually using the principles of relatedness, relating to one another, getting back, breaking down these four, basically these four cornerstones of mass formation. We can have the mass formation begin to crumble away and return to normal.
Wow, yes. And living with fear, it's no way to live. You want to live your life. And what is your advice to people? That you overcome your fear and that you live your life in spite of everything.
I told America on national TV this week that the emergency phase of the pandemic is over with them. It's over with. We've completed our Omicron curve. We're on the backside of it. Omicron is a very mild variant. We can easily handle it, even in the highest risk patients. After we finish here today, I'll handle a few more patients before we get to our venue. And I can tell you that the emergency is over with, that we can break down our fear. We can basically, just like it's been done in the United Kingdom, we can drop all the mandates. That means no mandates for masks, social distancing, work or vaccine mandates. We can return to normal and then just treat the high-risk patients with COVID-19. I think one important thing needs to be done to dissolve the fear over the country is the vaccines and the vaccine mandates need to go away. In the day the vaccines and the vaccine mandates are dropped, and there is just no more threat of a vaccine in someone's life, will become a national, if not worldwide, holiday.
A holiday, yes. And we all need a holiday from 22 months, of this. And you say normal. And before we thought what normal was. And why is it so important that we have normal in our life?
Normal means normal. No more division among families and friends. Some of our seniors and families now have gone through Christmas twice and they haven't gotten together. There are people who haven't seen their colleagues at work now for 2 years. We're talking about going back to normal, the renormalization of relationships.
Yes.
We cannot live our life through WebEx or Zoom or FaceTime. It's time to get back to the important in-person human interactions that we so greatly need.
So you're talking about relationships, connection, and community. And you feel like, in spite of everything, you have gotten those from patriots worldwide.
We have, and the March on D.C. to drop the mandates and the cohesion and the fellowship and collaboration among the group of heroic doctors, scientists, community, and public leaders was extraordinary. It's electric. And as we approach our venue here in Illinois, I can tell you that the crowd will be tremendous and the energy will be fantastic. You and I were, greeted by wonderful fans in the airport.
Yes.
Who wanted to get a hug. They wanted to talk. They wanted to connect. They wanted to get a picture to, remember that
Yes.
we've actually connected on a one-to-one level.
Yes. And I know you have told me, you have said, be relentless. Can you tell me about that? Because I love it so much.
At this point in time, there is such a negative wave across America. There is a wave of censorship and of fear and reprisal. And there are dark times that those beacons of light, those beacons of hope in our country, and we know who they are. We know who these courageous leaders are. Doctors, scientists are actually public health leaders.
Yes.
There are those in the governmental sector, and very importantly, those in the media. They must show tremendous resolve, tremendous backbone, and yes, they must be relentless, because it's only with that type of approach will we ever get America back on track.
Yes, I love it. Be relentless, have resolve. And my last question for you is, what makes you feel alive?
At this point in time, I can tell you, I feel that there is no greater mission ahead of me than to press the country and bring truth to America on what is going on with the COVID-19 pandemic and what is the pathway forward. And I am very hopeful and very joyous about bringing America home again.
Wow, Joy, that is amazing. I thank you, Dr. McCullough, for your encouragement. We all need hope, and I thank you.
Thank you.